Hello students, we'll continue our presentation on a search for a new architecture, and today we'll be looking at part 3. In part 1 and 2, we looked at how critical regionalism has evolved in the 21st century, how climate responsive buildings have evolved in the 21st century, how traditional knowledge systems have got wedded to very high technology of today to make amazingly interesting buildings that are passively controlled and not actively controlled. We have seen a series of works from various architects and firms like Morphogenesis and Sanjay Puri, etc., to see how these architects are evolving their buildings with regard to the climate outside and thus contributing to a sustainable built environment. Moving on, today we will start by ending these presentations and this series of 40 modules by looking at a genuine search and questions that need to be asked going forward into the 21st century. We know that globalization and liberalization post 1992 have had a massive impact on architecture, and there has been a tremendous growth even in the number of architects. Pre-independence, when we began these series, we'd seen there were only about 300 architects in India. That has moved up to about 30,000 in 2000 AD, 90,000 in 2019 AD, which is a jump of 60,000 over the past 19 to 20 years. And in 2021, 14,000 plus new architects got registered with the Council of Architecture, with an overall 52% male and 48% female. So that shows a very healthy ratio of genders who are participating in architecture. Indian architects are increasingly going their own ways. Not only are we increasing in the number of architects who are coming forward to contribute to the built environment and build a profession out of architecture, they're also taking many different directions when it comes to designing buildings. To give you an overview of what is probably happening, one of the strands of this growth is that, for example, this is just an example of an overview. There are many other streams or linkages that are possible, and here is that the early focus was on low cost housing, but the current focus is on, for example, smart cities, low cost sustainable housing, which is a subset, and then there is sustainability itself as a larger issue within architecture and planning, issue of green buildings, energy efficiency, resource efficiency, lowering of carbon emissions, we've talked about it frequently, seismic safety and resilience in buildings, particularly after the earthquakes of Latur and Bhuj, which really woke us up. But then I'm talking of resilience in general. It can also be floods, it can also be many other natural and man-made calamities, and then the rise of the desire to have an inclusive built environment where every gender and every person with whatever ability he has a role to play and has easy accessibility to the built environment. Now, this city skyline is changing dramatically. I keep on referring to Mumbai as a case in point because looking at Mumbai is symbolic of looking at all the metropolitan developments taking place in India. So this is the upcoming city skyline of Mumbai, but there is also another reality. In the presentation that I had shown you earlier with regard to point blocks, I talked about the tale of two cities, and here is the other city, the city that is underfed, that is undernourished, that is underemployed or unemployed or employed in a very poor sector, that is economically weaker, that is rushing from different parts of the country, from the rural areas into the urban areas to find employment and work opportunities, and they are living in slum areas. In Bombay, for example, Dharavi, one of the probably is the largest slum of Asia, and that shows the tale of two cities. On one hand, the upwardly mobile, the economically rich, strong and upper middle class, and even the upper class of people, and on the other hand, the diametrically opposite in terms of on the economic scale. So when we talk of smart cities like the upcoming Amravati, is there a place in this kind of development for the urban poor? Question number one. Is there a place in our urban development for the urban poor? Taking an overview of architecture, it is very difficult to describe contemporary trends in Indian architecture. Now that's also true for world architecture. The world architecture and Indian architecture, that as it stands today, there is such a vast growth in built environment. There are so many ideas that are being explored, so many style liberties are being taken, so many so-called architectural adventures are taking place. It's difficult to confine ourselves to one particular way of looking at it. Buildings are open to interpretation and wider criticism today because of the information age. Everything that is built is immediately put online for your perusal. It might be true that that kind of opinion is very shallow, because it is not based on post-occupancy auditing, it is not based on a very methodical evaluation, but there it is, it's there in front of us. Now the search is still on for an appropriate Indian architecture, but there is no single architectural paradigm that is really catching our attention. But that is also true that in architecture paradigms evolve, but slowly and occasionally. And globally, architectural ideas developed at an amazingly powerful way in the first half of the 20th century, and architectural lines of design in the first 4 decades of post-independent India also hold a similar amazing power to define the future architecture within the 21st century for India. The ideas and concepts and paradigms that were reflected by modern architecture in the world and by the modern Indian architecture post-independence in India continues to play a dominant role. Now there is a search for fresh directions led by a new generation of architects and academicians which are located in different cities, and they are closely in touch with their local regions, having their local realities, their local problems, and their local socio-cultural and economic profiles. That is also true for other forms of art. Just to give you a sidebar here, if you look at our movies today, for example, so many of them are now focusing on local issues, or they are developing out of there is a local backdrop to the movies that we create. There are small cities and small towns where these stories are based, rather than having all our movies being based in either in big cities or even having song sequences in Switzerland, etc. So that seems to be coming to an end. Whether we talk of movies, like I said, this is digressing from my topic, but definitely in architecture, local and regional realities are playing a very important role. Their searches have taken them in different directions because they are tackling and addressing different problems. Therefore, there are different approaches. Whether it is an approach like this, or it is an approach of Sanjay Puri, or it is a building like this, all of them have found a place in growing Indian architecture today. There is a coexistence of these various approaches that is enriching Indian architecture, whether it is critical regionalism, or it is the work of an architect like Hafiz Contractor, or it is a kind of this efficient, organized critical regionalism of an architect like Raj Rewal. Now, there is a great concern today for past architectural forms and past urban forms. Take for example the Visual Arts Institutional Campus in Rohtak by Raj Rewal Associates. It draws deeply from historical and typological examples. Rewal considered here as historical examples the campuses of Takshila and Nalanda. Now, not only are there historical examples, there are also typological examples. There are type of campuses, and this was a campus building. So he derived his answers from Nalanda and Takshila, and also he took the example of Fatehpur Sikri as a historical example for designing in North India. Then we have the ecological architecture of the CII Sohrabji Godrej Green Business Center in Hyderabad by Karan Grover in 2004, where we are talking of green rating systems and green buildings. This building, which I have talked to you earlier also, is the first LEED platinum rated building in India. It's eco-friendly and energy efficient. It has photovoltaic panels to capture energy. It has an efficient use of water. It has passive means of energy efficiency. All this makes it the first platinum rated, LEED platinum rated building in India. Then there is the ecological architecture promoted by Christopher Benninger through the Suzlon One Earth project in Pune, and this is also a LEED platinum rated building and a GRIA 5-star rated building. It uses non-toxic and recycled materials. It uses aluminium louvers as a protective skin to keep out the sun, to bring in daylight through, which is without glare, and to aid in cross ventilation. It has on-site energy generation through photovoltaics and through wind energy or windmills. The planning is inspired from larger historical Indian examples like that of Fatehpur Sikri and the Meenakshi temple complex in Madurai. So therefore, it has taken the shape, it's a large campus, it has taken the shape of a long horizontal growth, turning it into what came to be, what has been called as a landscaper versus a skyscraper. There are major changes taking place in our buildings today, as I have keep on repeating in my lectures, because of digital technology, tools and applications. We are coming up with amazingly interesting forms in various parts of our country, in various cities, which are a direct result of digital technology. In continuation, we see there are a number of coexisting strands in which our buildings are being exhibited. There are modernist principles, there are minor examples of deconstructivism, there is critical regionalism in the 21st century that I have talked to you earlier in the part 1 and part 2 for a search for a new architecture, there is postmodernist tendencies, and there is community involvement. Now, looking at a purist modernist approach like that of Bimal Patel, for example, looking at the original modernist architecture all over again with its simplicity of form, interpenetration of spaces, that is, two or more spaces that penetrate each other mutually, there is precise detailing, there is high level of craftsmanship versus brutalism, that was raw concrete. Now we find, for example, in the works of Bimal Patel, it is exposed concrete, but it is fine finished exposed concrete. So we have buildings like the Student Activity Center in IIT Madras, and we have other buildings by Bimal Patel, whether it is on the IIM campus in Ahmedabad and other buildings. Then there is the neo-modernism that is coming up. Now the word neo basically means a new form, or you can simply say neo is new. So this is new modernism, a new way of interpreting modernism, which makes modernism more visually exciting. Mainstream work of many architects in India is referring to neo modernism. It is an updated form which often is a response to climate, it is a response to new type of building use, and it is a response to new type of aesthetics. For example, the Goa Institute of Management by Brinda Somaya and Kalappa in 2011, and this building or the Gokul Das images in Bangalore again by Brinda Somaya and Kalappa in 1998. These works of Brinda Somaya, they reflect a very simple form of modernism with free flowing lines, and it has got a visual richness which went missing from modernism and later on in late modernism. So yes, late modernism has these geometric interplays, and it has got this high-tech form work that you see, or high-tech forms that you see in HSBC in Hong Kong by Norman Foster. It has got the use of more simple lines in the barrel vaulted Kimball Art Museum by Louis Kahn. It has got these curvy linear glass facades of Willis Faber Dumas, again by Norman Foster, or Richard Myers' The Athenaeum in Indiana, which is a further advancement in the idea of the white planar geometry of the international style, but in late modernism it became far more complex because of better technology, better materials, etc. Then we have in neo-modernism, for example, the JMC House in Ahmedabad by Bimal Patel from 1995 to 97. It's an 11-story office building which is a simple block for maximum saleable floor area, having vertical shafts of square glazed panels which are having these opaque centers in between. Architecture is also being looked at as an art form. It's always been there. often architects have wanted to freely express themselves through their architecture, whether it is Antoni Gaudí in the Casa Milà, Casa Batlló and other projects, or whether it is Santiago Calatrava, in a sense a modern day Spanish Antoni Gaudí, and whether it is the work of Frank Lloyd Wright in the inverted frustum work of the Guggenheim Museum in New York, or the deconstructivist work of the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao by Frank Gehry. All of them are expressive architectural forms. And architecture as an art form can also be seen in India. There are many examples. In the next session, I will hopefully be looking at a couple of examples where we are looking at architecture as an art form. Take a very simple example, you might have heard of it, the Hussain Doshi Gufa, which is on the CEPT campus. It's a fuzzy border between building and fine arts. It shows, it has the display of the artworks of Imam Hussain, but the Hussain Doshi Gufa in itself is an artwork. Then there is Deconstructivism. Now, in a very strange way, India has not really been touched much by Deconstructivism. We see a profusion of buildings under Deconstructivism in the West, but in India there are only minor examples. There is very little impact of Deconstructivism in India. For example, in the Stellar complex coming up in Ahmedabad by Sanjay Puri, only one part of the building on a floor above is designed with using the Deconstructivist principle. Now, what is Deconstructivism as it appeared in the 1980s in the works of Bimal Patel and Frank Gehry, etc.? It gives an impression of fragmentation of constructed building, and it's characterized by absence of harmony, continuity and symmetry. Then there is, of course, our critical regionalism or neo-traditional architecture, a new look at traditional architecture, also called by John Lang as truly modern Indian architecture. So we are learning from traditional and vernacular architectural principles from various regions of India and combining them with modern architectural principles. We have the works of various architects like Sattam and Namita Singh and Sanjay Puri, Raj Rewal, Shirish Berry, Christopher Benninger, all of them contributing to neo-traditional architectural style. There is, of course, the postmodernist tendencies that we find in the work of an architect like Hafiz Contractor. It has been deplored by purist architects. It has been looked down upon, considered to be very flamboyant and garish, but there is no doubt about it that lay people find it very attractive. Hiranandani is a case in point, but Hiranandani Garden project in Mumbai is a case in point. Along with that, property developers encourage it because it is a value driven design, and thus it has, for example, columns which are either classical Indian or even from classical European architecture, signifying grandeur, as you can see, for example, in this DLF building by Hafiz Contractor. And then you can see the similarities between a postmodernist building in the West. This is the Humana building by Michael Graves in America, and this is Hafiz Contractor's building in NCR, and you can see the similarities in the material typology, the block itself, and that kind of connection, because this postmodernism of Hafiz Contractor is not linked with any traditional or historical architecture of India, but it is borrowed from Western so-called historical architecture. And so these are the other examples of such buildings. And then, of course, there is a postmodernism that is derived from classical Indian architecture, like the Vallabh Bhavan Secretariat in Bhopal by C.P. Kukreja architects, and it has got these elements in it, whether it is the way the columns, the walls are bulging out like this, the forms are being derived from classical Indian architecture, and that is another way of looking at postmodernism. So we will end here today, and we will then come to two concluding presentations on a search for a new architecture. We will look at some of the works of different architects who are practicing in the 21st century and the kind of works they are bringing forward in front of us, the directions that we are taking in the 21st century. Thank you.